guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called Swedish comedian Johan Glans with English subtitles. So this is very interesting to me because I don't think I've ever listened to like a Swedish comedian. I don't know like how the jokes are, how the Swedish humor is like. I'm wondering if it's going to be like a little bit more of like a funny haha situation of like he's gonna do like a lot of like physical comedy, like that's what apparently like Swedish people like, or it's gonna be maybe something leaning more towards like dark humor, or maybe just like some jokes, I don't know, based on like their cultural sort of like, I don't know, what they live, their daily lives, or maybe it's gonna be like more universal. I don't know, but I'm excited, I can't wait. So let's check it out and comment, like and subscribe.
Slappna av. Nu efter förra gången jag var på Stockholm Live så några dagar efter så kom det fram lite folk till mig på stan. Och så det är du från Stockholm Live. Och så sa de allihop samma sak. De sa, fan vad kort du är. Du ser längre ut på TV.
He doesn't look that tall, I have to say.
Vad vill man att jag ska svara där? Liksom, förlåt, jag ska bättra mig.
That's true, some people do say that. It's like, what do you want me to do about this?
Jag är en liten räka. Det är jag önskar att jag hade mer liksom pondus. Jag önskar att vara en sån människa när jag kom in i ett rum att alla bara han är här. Jag är som Darth Vader. Fy fan, han kommer in i ett rum så har han en lång svart mantel som fladdrar efter sig och så spelar de den där musiken. Du vet, dom 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 dom. Så skulle jag vilja ha det. Jag vet en vanlig dag, man kommer in på pressbyrån så dom. Hallå, en festis. Tack.
You're going to Starbucks for tea?
Vet folk kan stå kvar, vem fan var det? Folk kan stå kvar, vilken kille! Men jag trodde han skulle vara längre. Jag tror det var. Är det någon som har hört min Darth Vader-imitation? Ja, bra. Jag har gjort den ungefär 150 gånger. Jag tänkte jag ska pensionera den ikväll. För er som inte har hört den. Ni kan göra det här hemma. Allt ni behöver är en tillbringare och mycket fritid.
What's gonna happen with the hair? I'm scared. The breathing.
The force is strong with you, young Skywalker. Obi-Wan has taught you well.
Det blir inte bättre än så. Men det...
No, it's true. It does sound like him. It's so easy, actually. I never really thought of that.
Min andra favoritfigur i Stjärnornas krig, det är Chewbacca. För jag tycker att det är så jävla intressant. För hela hans språk, det är egentligen bara ett enda läte.
Oh, yeah.
Hela hans språk, det är bara... Like, wow. Men de andra förstår vartenda ord han säger. De är bara helt med på noterna. Han säger... Och folk, va? Har prinsessan Leia blivit kidnappad? Och förd till Jabbas palats på ökenplaneten Tatooine. Och kaffet är slut, herregud. Tack. Så jag har börjat märka en del ålderstecken på mig själv nu på sistone som verkligen skrämmer mig. Jag var inne i affären häromdagen, skulle köpa godis. Så kom jag ut med en sån här påse Werthers karameller. Det är som gubbagodis. Jag bara, vad fan, när hände detta? Va? Vet, steget därifrån till bröstkarameller, det är jävligt gott. Och jag började bli sådär förtjust i kaffe och kakor på ett sätt som jag inte var förr. Du vet, jag blev sådär glad i hjärtat om någon har med sig vetebröd. Jag var liksom, vetebröd? Ja. På en torsdag? Ja. Idag var det fest.
Oh no.
Och tårta. Jag har börjat fråga, när jag är på fester, jag har börjat fråga efter tårta. Så blir det tårta? På begravningar. Blir det tårta?
Wait,
jag bor i
I have to say that's a weird thing that I think why in funerals people have food. I don't really know. Like I get maybe it's not a party. I don't know. But like usually there's cake. Well, there's no cake. But usually I don't know. It's a weird situation actually. Why in funerals you have food? Like I would understand maybe like a drink because you want comforting, like something that's comforting, something warm like coffee or tea or I don't know hot chocolate because people are mourning to death of a loved one. But it's weird to me that would you have like food or I don't know, just cakes and food in general at a funeral? I always found that so strange.
Stockholm, jag trivs jättebra. Jag tycker Stockholm är en jättetrevlig stad. Det enda jag saknar här uppe, det är djur. Alltså hästar och kor och sånt där. Nej, men det finns ju ute på landet.
Of course in the country.
Vill man se en ko i Stockholm, då får man åka in till Skansen. Men det är inte samma sak.
What's Skansen?
Vet de korna där, det är såna jävla citykor.
City cows.
Nej, men de har en attityd. De bara glor på en så. Och de råmar inte ordentligt. De bara... Mu. De tror de är något.
They're city cows. They're better than you.
Och jag märkte också sen jag flyttade hit att det finns en del ord betyder inte samma sak här uppe som nere i Skåne. Som grina. Jag är uppväxt med att det betyder skratta. Man skrattar riktigt gott. Här uppe betyder det gråta, eller hur? Ja. För första gången någon sa så till mig. Åh gud vad jag grinar när min hund dog. Din sjuke jävel! Du ska inte ha djur. Du ska banne mig inte ha... Ett annat ord, Coca-Cola. Nere i Skåne så har vi alltid en Coca. Här uppe säger man en Cola. Första gången jag kom in på McDonalds så sa hallå, jag vill bara ha en Coca. Nej, hon tjejen i kassan, hon bara... Mu? Nej, sa hon.
That was a pretty good joke.
Jag vill ha en Coca. Jag hade lika gärna kunnat komma in och säga hallå. Det var ingenting. Och jag var så dum så jag gav mig inte. Jag stod så en Coca, tack. Till slut så var det en kille vid pommes fritesen som skulle hjälpa mig. Så han sa, jag tror han vill ha en kaka.
No.
Och jag sken upp, en kaka, ja. På en torsdag. Ja. Och en tårta. Jag har redan planerat mitt drömbröllop.
Okay.
Jag ser framför mig att det är en fin kyrka. Och så min brud kommer gående. En vit klänning, en lång vit slöja. 2 flickor går och håller den. Och spelar de brudmarschen. Vet du, dam, dam, dam. Och sen slår den om till dam, 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 dam. Och så kommer jag in med en lång svart mantel. Som hålls av 2 hookies. Och det är inte prästen. Prästen är en sån här liten jävel som säger...
Why is it tiny?
Marry this woman you will.
Oh, he's
Yes.
a Yoda.
Och då ska jag chocka hela kyrkan med så här...
No. I am her father.
This is going off the rails.
Jag ska inte luta på mig. Okej.
Okay, yeah, this was very funny. I think like the whole bit was sort of like influenced based on Star Wars and like on his obsession with Star Wars. I think it's really funny. I do really like, I think when comedians do that, I think it's one of my favorite things. When they sort of like, they begin like, because I don't know how you call it like in a comedy routine. It's the segment. I don't really know. Like this the example of like this segment. Like he started with like the Star Wars bit, which obviously was very funny, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah. So he sort of like went along. He took a detour, and he like did a bunch of other jokes that didn't really have anything to do with that. And then he sort of like took it back both times. Like on one of the last jokes, he was like turning it back to like, okay, on a Thursday, of course, like, and he calls back to like, yes, he already talked about that. And of course, this last bit, which is probably like the funniest one, it was like, yes, he's calling back and referring to like the first joke that he did about like Star Wars, and he was making all those references that he already did. So it's a thing about like, in order for you to actually laugh and understand the joke, you would have to have, you have to have seen like the previous part of the segment, because if it's just isolated, and if I just showed you like the last, I don't know, 2 minutes, like the part of the wedding, you would laugh, but you would be like, okay, this is weird, but that's it. No, you have to really understand, what came earlier to actually get the grasp of like, oh, okay, now you understand what you mean. And obviously, like, that's the whole like joke construction. And I love it when comedians do that, because it's like, oh yeah, it really calls back to the other thing. Apparently, I don't know if this is like an example of like how Swedish actual like comedy is like. I think it's very like, I don't know, maybe more along the lines of what I was expecting, because I know it's going to go like for physical comedy. I don't know if that's common with like Swedish comedians, but I would expect, because they're, again, maybe it's more of a like generalization on a part of me, or a cliche of like, oh, they're Nordic countries, they're Scandinavian countries, and I'm guessing they're going to be a little bit more reserved. And it's not that they're not laughing. Obviously they're laughing, they're allowed to laugh, and obviously they have comedians, but I think it's more preserved, maybe, like they're reserved. They're a little bit more of like, they're like keeping it to themselves, and more a little bit of like, oh, we're not like, haha, this is hilarious, and I'm gonna go do weird things on stage. Like, no, it's more of like, I'm standing here with like my microphone, and I'm like making my comedy routine and my stand-up. So I was expecting, I think, maybe something along those lines, but I don't know if that's an accurate representation of how most Swedish comedians actually are, and how Swedish comedy is actually like. But I like what I saw. I think my favorite joke was actually always like the funniest one. I think probably was the last one, but I think personally for me, I think the funniest one was the one with the city cows. I don't know, like apparently he comes from like a farm, or maybe like the countryside, maybe something that's not Stockholm, that's not actually a city, and it's probably a more rural place. And that's what he was referring, like, oh, there's no animals here, because it's like, yes, usually in cities you don't really there's no animals in the city, like, animals as in like farm animals, horses, cows, pigs, I don't know, like you're not gonna find like large animals, you're just gonna find domestic animals like cats and dogs and whatever. So it is kind of funny to me that the joke about like, oh, the city cows were like, like they were like, I can't replicate it, but how he said it was really funny to me. And the whole joke of like, yes, because obviously the joke is that it's constantly like, oh, usually, and it's obviously like people from the city are not like making those jokes, but people that are not from the city, like they tend to make those jokes of like, and it doesn't really matter like in which country you're from, like it's all constantly they always say like, oh, like people in the city, they're more like refined, and they're more like, oh, they're always like, they're gonna look at you like, I'm better than you because I'm from the city. Like it's more of a, like all of them, and it's a universal thing that everyone's sort of like, but I think it's not on the part of like the city dwellers. I think it's just the part of like the ones that are like from other places. They are constantly thinking, oh, they're looking down on me because I'm not from the city and I'm from a rural place. I think it's funny that it's like, it's a universal thing apparently. Like it doesn't matter what country, what city you're from. People from the outside areas, they're not the capital, are always going to be thinking that if someone's from the city, they're constantly like looking down on them, which is like, I don't know why. It's like it's not like that, right? I don't think we're like that, but I don't know why like people think it's like they have a chip on their shoulder. I don't really know, but it's funny to me that it's a universal feeling on the part of people that are like from farms, or just not necessarily from farms, but just people that do not live in cities, and when they move to the capital, they start thinking like, oh, people are so different, and people are like very like, I don't like this, I don't like you, you're like, you're disgusting. It's like, no, it's not like that. So it's funny that like the whole thing is being reflected to like the cows, like everyone's so, like not like everyone's such a snob that even the cows that they have here are actual snobs as well, and they say moo in a different way. So I like that one because I think it was really funny and very creative. It's a creative way of saying, like I mentioned, something that I think it's a familiar feeling apparently, and it's a funny sort of like twist on a joke that could have been, you know, I think because again, comedy is sort of like that. It's more like you're making observations about stuff in a funny way that makes people laugh. So I think it's a funny twist on a social commentary that I think, you know, you can just say it and people are going to be laughing. But the one with the cows is like, yes, I like that one, especially because it's cows. I don't know, cows just make things funnier for some reason. I don't know. Yes, I think I had a great laugh with this. Hopefully you did as well. And that was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.